Hey everybody, this is a video to show you a diagonal fold card that'll fit in an A2 sized envelope once it's done. And you can use 8.5 by 11 paper or 12 by 12 paper. And I'm going to show you how to cut both of them. And if you're going to use 12 by 12 paper, I would recommend that it's two-sided, and you'll see why later in the video. That it's just going to be easier for you to make the card if you have double-sided 12 by 12 paper. So thanks for watching. Okay, the card is diagonal fold because we're going to be cutting on a diagonal. And then I'm going to show you how to score and fold that paper so that it does fit in your A2 envelope. And what I'm going to show you first is just how to cut the base. You can use any color of cardstock. And I'm going to show you this on 8.5 by 11. Then later, I'm going to show you how to cut patterned paper if you have 12 by 12, like designer series paper. And you can get 2 card bases out of one 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. All right, so that's what we're going to start with. So with your cardstock, and this can be double-sided cardstock also. And if it is 8.5 by 11 double-sided, you wouldn't even need to add designer series paper. You could just make it with the designer series paper, you know, if this is patterned. In fact, you don't even have to put colored paper on here. You could just leave it plain. But what you're gonna do, and once you have a template like this, then you can use it, you know, for all of your cards in the future. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna make a little hashtag with your ruler at 4 1/4, right at the top, 4 1/4. And then you're gonna come down to the bottom of that paper and you're gonna make a little mark at 3 inches. And then you're gonna draw a line from that 4 1/4 to that 3, and you're gonna draw a line. Then you're gonna turn your paper, and you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna mark 4 1/4, 3 inches, and you're gonna draw a diagonal line. And that's gonna give you those 2 card bases. Then you're also gonna have leftover cardstock in the middle to make tags. If you wanna put a sentiment with that same color cardstock, you'll have this strip left over. And then we're gonna talk about how to score it so it folds like that. So cut that. And you can cut it on anything. You can cut it on, if you have a guillotine trimmer, just put that penciled line right in your cutting slot, whatever kind of a trimmer you have, and just cut right along that line, flip it, and do the same thing. And then you're gonna end up with 2 pieces of your card that you can score and fold. Now, scoring it is kind of the tricky part. And you can do a couple of things. You can just hand fold it if you want to, if you don't have a scorer. But the trick is to score this with the flat side in your scorer and the widest end to the left in your score tool. And you're gonna score at 4 1/4. And 7 7/8. All right, and that's where I scored. All right, so again, 4 1/4, 7 7/8, flat side in the scoring tool, and your widest to the left in your tool. Otherwise, your folds will be like opposite, and you'll have a much shorter front piece if you score it this way, you know, with this angle in your tool that way. All right, so let's do one of those together, one of those bases together. So flat, widest, all right? And then we're gonna go 4 1/4 and 7 7/8, just like that. And then depending on your fold, all right, you could even make your card go opposite, all right? So that's opening to the right, where I had it in my version, I had mine opening to the left. And so that's also going to be key to how you want your card to look, and also the angle of your next layer. All right, next is if you're going to add a layer of some designer series paper. And if you use one-sided paper, that's what I'm going to show you first, and I'll show you some of the difficulty in that. So if you cut any 12 by 12 paper, you're going to cut it at a 4 on your trimmer. You're going to angle the paper so that it's at 2 3/4. So my 3-inch mark is here. I'm going to put it at 2 3/4 and angle that at 4. This is also something that you could draw, hash marks if you wanted exact lines. And I'm going to cut on this angle of that 4 and that 2 3/4. All right. Now, this is what is going to happen if you have one-sided paper. You're going to be having the wrong angles for that inside layer. If this were double-sided, you could just flip it over and you could use whatever is on the opposite side. Therefore, this piece you would have to cut differently. This piece in here will fit. All right, and I'm going to show you some of these measurements in a second. But then also your front piece is going to be backwards. Now, you can fix that if you have one-sided paper by cutting at that angle, then take the straight side that you haven't cut yet, flip it so you have your blank side showing, and make that same angled cut. And you can cut at 4 2 3/4. So we're going to put the corner of the paper at 4, this corner of the paper at 2 3/4, and we're going to cut. Okay, now you have opposite angles. So now you can take these two pieces and now you can interchange them so that they will fit the other fold. So that's where I was saying that you could make your card open to the right, and then that angled piece would fit on that side. So it's a lot easier if your paper is double-sided, because then you don't have to worry about the angles and the openings. So I'll show you very simply with a piece of double-sided paper. All right, and this way, no matter what angle I cut this at, I'm going to be able to use the reverse side in the card. So this paper here that's striped, the other side of that paper was this little leaf. So I was able to use that opposite angle, all right, from that cut on that back side. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put your corner paper at 4, the bottom corner at 2 3/4. And you're going to cut at that angle. So now you can see how that was an opposite angle, but now I can use that side. Then I can flip that paper and I can do the same thing on that straight edge. Once I have flipped it, I can do the same thing and I will have this piece with this wide angle. So you can see how it's a little easier to use double-sided paper and get a bunch of different cards, because you'll be able to get three strips out of this 12 by 12. You'll be able to get 3 strips. And actually you're going to have this really weird leftover piece. And another thing you can do is just make a template, and you can trace this onto paper, and you can make your own, you know, make your own templates. In fact, you could probably do it at this angle here. And you could just draw a line and just cut this with scissors as well. So the Designer Series paper is at 4 2 3/4. Now there is one last thing that I have to point out about the paper fitting in this angle. All right, so the last thing is cutting your angled piece to make that second layer. When you have that whole angled piece, you're going to be cutting it into 3 pieces. The first one you're going to cut at 4. And that is the double-sided. So this is the one where I can use it on that angle very easily. If I wanted that side, I'd have to go and cut the opposite side showing from what we did, or I could have my card open to the right, and I could use that angle in there. Okay, so that's the nice thing about the double-sided paper. The next piece for the inside, you're going to cut at hold on, I think 3.5, but that looks too wide. There's no way that was 3.5. I think it was more like 3. No, it is at 3.5. So you're going to cut the next piece at 3.5. And then you're going to cut your next piece at 2 3/4. And again, depending on the angle, and you have this scrap, by the way, depending on the angle, you can see how that's going opposite. If you wanted the blue, you would only be able to use this piece. So if you really want, let's see, yeah. So if you really wanted this paper, for example, you'd have to make sure that you cut it opposite sides, or just change your card opening from right, you know, from left to right. So this is opening to the right. Okay, now we're gonna open it to, we're gonna open it to the left. I'm gonna put this piece, so that's gonna get glued there. Then I'm gonna choose, now I lost which sizes I had. Choose which one goes here. So that's gonna be my inside piece. And then this one, get my angles correct here, and that's gonna be my front piece. And then you're just gonna end up with a little bit of border around each piece. And then you're gonna have, like I said, that middle strip from your 8.5 by 11 where you can do a sentiment. And the measurements for this piece, all right, remember you're cutting the DSP first at 4 2 3/4. So we're gonna do this side. So corner at 4, corner at 2 3/4. And we're gonna cut at an angle. Then flat side, you're gonna cut at 4, 3.5, and 2 3/4. And then that will now give me the opposite patterned piece for the front. All right, so I can get 2 cards opposite DSP because I flipped my paper when I cut it. Now you have a third piece that you can cut out whichever side and whatever angle you need. And you just pretend this is your straight edge, even though it's at an angle. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna line that up at 4 and 2 3/4, and this trimmer's just a tad small. You could probably do, yeah, you can do one side easier than the other. But even though you have that angle, you can still line those corners up at 4 and 2 3/4, and you still get that same sized angled paper. So out of 12 by 12, you're gonna get enough for 3 card bases plus this extra strip. And I know it's a little confusing, so feel free to comment and send me questions, because it did take me quite a bit of time to figure out these different angles and the sizing, really. But it does take a little bit of practice. Now see, I lost what piece was gonna go in there. It's here somewhere. But if you have maybe just some scrap white paper and scrap DSP, that's what I would use first, just to kind of try out these measurements. And that's what I did. This was just some older paper that I was using for my measurements. And then what I'm gonna do is just kind of keep this paper clipped together, and then I'll just have it in the future for reference. And it is one-sided, so that I could realize, hey, you know, that's gonna be different once you flip that around, the angle. Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. I know it's quite a little bit confusing when you think about these angles and, you know, which side of the card you want that DSP to be on. But yeah, like I said, feel free to send me a message, reach out, and I'll definitely help you out. Thanks for watching.